So, I'm going to summarize what needs, what the major conclusions. First thing is that zero interest is just one small part of an Islamic economy. It's not that if we set interest to zero, we will achieve an Islamic economy. In fact, if we set interest to zero, the economy as it is will collapse. That doesn't mean that interest zero is not feasible, it's just that we need to make a lot of other changes. So, if we make those other changes, then the zero interest rate will emerge naturally as a consequence. So, alright, so next slide. Oh, I have a. So, okay, good. So, I'm going to talk about politics, economics, Islamic economic system. So, basically, what is the ideal that we want to move to, and then how can we move from our current capitalist system, which is highly un-Islamic, toward the Islamic system? What are the steps that need to be taken? So, let me start with politics, which is really not my area. The Federal Sharia Court is powerless because anybody can take a pencil and paper and issue an objection, and then this has to be heard in the Supreme Court before the judgment is implemented. This is sort of the reverse of the national system. Once the Federal Sharia Court takes a judgment, then it should be implemented. And sure, people can challenge it and go to the Supreme Court, but pending, then if they succeed in the Supreme Court, then they can reverse. So apparently, even though the government has withdrawn those objections, governments are not the only objections. There are other objections. So it may be that this is just a political ploy, and those but even more interesting is the fact that it may be worthwhile for those people who want Islamic system to let it go or to force it to go to the Supreme Court rather than having it pending. But these are issues that, because the current judgment has many gaps, and if the Supreme Court rules on it, it would be possible to fill up those gaps. Alright, so in political objectives, in terms of what we need to do, we need to stop this, we need to change this law. And I understand that there is already a motion in the Senate to change this law, that once the Federal Sharia Court takes a decision, it's implemented. Now, if somebody has an objection, he can file an objection, and if it succeeds, then it should be reversed. But for the moment, anyone can block any decision of Federal Sharia, and this certainly doesn't seem right. But also, we should actually, now that the objection is there, we should push for Supreme Court hearing earliest possible, and then smooth out some of the wrinkles that need to be worked out in order to implement this in an effective way. Alright, so some of the micro details which have been left out of this decision, although to some extent they have been covered. I don't have time to go into the ins and outs of the subtleties. But basically, in the Zia regime, what happened was that Islamization took place, but all they did was the banks just changed the names of their contracts, and nothing else changed. Today, the Islamic banks are a little bit better off. They have actually made some progress, but there is no way that one can say, from the economics point of view, I'm talking as an economist, not as a Sharia expert, the Islamic banks and the conventional banks are performing exactly the same function when it comes to the economic aspect of it. And this is not how it should be, and I will explain what needs to be changed in order to get to a genuine Islamic system. So, but the main question is, who will decide that the Supreme Court decision has been implemented? Suppose we just say, this is something very easy to do, that okay, as soon as all of the banks become Islamic banks, then the decision has been implemented. There is no zero interest. So, if this is done, then this will be basically more or less like what happened in the Zia regime. The names have changed, but the Islam. So one of the things that needs to be done is to have really one very simple micro detail is that the Sharia board should not be paid by the banks. This creates very adverse incentives. In fact, the board which decides that Islamization has taken place or not on the macro level and also on the micro level, when there is a Sharia board for a bank, the decision should be made by someone who is not being paid by the bank. There are many ways and schemes to achieve this, but they are not yet in place. Alright, so that's enough of politics. Let's go into the economics. Now, in other talks, I explained how modern social science is a grand deception. It is based on the illusion that this social science is just like physical science, it's objective, factual reality, and the law of supply and demand is like the law of gravity. But this is completely false. Actually, economics is a religion. It is a set of normative descriptions about how you should run society. And these normative restrictions are exactly adapted to a capitalist society and they're completely wrong for an Islamic society. So when we study economics, we study it from an Islamic methodological perspective. And the methodological perspective is three-dimensional. It is based on saying that, okay, let's take a positive approach. What's going on? That's a description and an objective analysis. Then we also have a normative. What is the ideal? And then we have transformative. How do we get from where we stand to where we want to be? So these are the three components of an Islamic methodology, which I have labeled as Ulumul Umran because I say that we need to reject all of these Western social sciences. They are applicable only to European societies, they are not applicable to Islamic society. But this includes everything, business, economics, psychology, sociology, you name it, political science. They are all Western sciences. They were derived from lessons of European experience. They don't apply to us. So, we start with the positive. But where do we stand? So, to understand where we stand is a big problem. I mean, what is actually going on in the world around us? And the biggest problem in understanding what is going on is economic theory itself. It is designed to deceive us, and to hide the reality. So, for one example, one of the deceptive theories is the idea that money is a wave, or the quantity theory of money, as it's famously called. Because basically, what this theory says is that money only affects prices and has no other effect on the economy. This is completely wrong. And in fact, Keynes said in his revolutionary book that money is not neutral in the short run or the long run. But this idea was eventually rejected by economists led by the Chicago School, led by Milton Friedman. And today, all over the world, economists teach that money is neutral, and that's why they have no conception about how the global financial crisis happened, because that all have to do with money, which, according to economists, doesn't matter. Alright, so 4 myths about money which are widely believed. That money is the sole cause of inflation. As Friedman said, inflation is always and everywhere a monetary phenomenon. This is completely false and bogus, and it's well known. Inflation occurs in Pakistan when oil prices rise. This has nothing to do with money. The second falsehood is that if the government creates money, this will lead to inflation. But if the government borrows the money, it will not lead to inflation. And this is nonsense, because when government borrows money, and this is something I learned from practical experience, what happens when the government borrows money? Well, the state bank creates money, lends it to the private banks at 16% today. The private banks turn around and lend it to the government at 16.5% or 17%. So they make money on this without any effort, and money creation takes place. So if government printing money, that is the state bank makes money and gives it directly to the government instead of going through the private banks, it would be much cheaper and much better. But economic theory says that no, you can't do that. The third thing, which is even more revolutionary, is that government is not like a household. And this is a major myth, that government needs to raise money in order to spend it. Completely false. This is not true. The government gets to print money as much as it likes. And so it doesn't need to raise money. In fact, money is created, all money is created by the government. There is no other way to get money. So the government does not have to balance its budget. And so because of the second myth that governments must raise money, today the governments are borrowing from foreign governments and borrowing from domestic sources and becoming strapped today. Nearly half of the budget, more than half of the budget of the government is in interest payments. It's completely ridiculous. There is no need for it. The government does not need to borrow from private sources and it does not need to borrow from foreign sources. But economic theory tells us otherwise. And so our economists, because our ideas are also important, we cannot manufacture our own. So we follow these theories which enslave us. So basically, the key point is that inflation is caused by increasing costs, not necessarily by money. Pumping money into the economy can also cause inflation. That's called demand pull. But the inflation that we see in Pakistan today, that's cost push. Cost push inflation does not come from money and cannot be managed by interest. So in the recent state bank statement, they said that we are raising interest rates to control inflation. That's also nonsense. The state bank cannot control inflation because the state bank has no control over what is happening to the oil prices. But nonetheless, what they did was correct. But the reason for that they described, that is, as a practical experience, tells me if they had not raised the interest rate, that would have caused serious problems for the economy. So they did the right thing, but the reasoning they explained for it was wrong. So a deeper question arises, a meta-level question. Why do economists maintain these theories when they are obviously wrong? Even a child can see that these theories are wrong, but economists insist on them, write textbooks on them, run policy with them. This is really very strange. I mean, have they no sense? Well, here on the right-hand side, we have the description of how the GDP has grown in the USA over the past few decades. So, from that picture, you don't see anything. Things are going normally. Actually, what happened was that the Reagan-Thatcher revolution, which took place, it wiped out the poor. In this right-hand graph, you see the share of wealth of the different proportions. So the small sliver of the light blue at the bottom, which basically disappears in the end, that is the share of the bottom 50% of the population. So the system, the financial system is designed to basically exploit the poor and give wealth to the rich. So it increases inequality. But when you look at the GNP statistics, you can't see anything like that. So to understand why Keynesian economics, the central point of Keynesian economics is that the government has the responsibility of creating full employment. As opposed to this one-of Chicago school neoclassicals, they say that the market will automatically create full employment and the government should not interfere. So when Keynesian economics was applied following the Great Recession, the share of wealth of the top 1%, which is what this graph shows, started to decline. And actually, the era has been described about 30 years after the World War II, which ended in 1944. So let's say 44 to 74. This was the period of the maximum prosperity of USA and Europe, because Keynesian theories were in effect and governments were trying to create full employment. And so you can see that the share of the top 1% was declining. But this was very painful to the top 1%, so they plotted a counter-revolution, and this is described by Naomi Klein. And so you can see that after the Reagan-Thatcher revolution, the share of the top 1% started to rise once again, and the bottom 50% got wiped out, as we saw in the previous graph. So there is this book called Naomi Klein, The Shock Doctrine, which explains all of this in great detail. And actually, I learned more economics from this book than I did from my PhD in Stanford. So basically, instead of going into the micro-level details, let me explain the big picture. The dominant economic theory has nothing to do with reality. It is just ideological support for the top 1%. It provides the justification for why the wealth should be unequal and why it should all go to those people who are already rich. Keynesian theories are far closer to the truth, and they provide for prosperity for the people because they insist on full employment. Alright, so that's about, so we can't understand what is happening in the macroeconomic level because the theories that are currently in dominant are the ones that led to the global financial crisis. And what is more surprising is that no change took place after the global financial. Surely, after your theories collapse in a spectacular way, you should rethink and build a new theory, but this was not done. Because these theories are designed to support the power structures. So now we come to money. Again, conventional economic theory completely misunderstands the role of money. And the basic thing, one very common misconception is that all problems are created by fiat money, paper money which has nothing behind it, and if we start, gold and silver will not fix that problem. One very simple equation which they don't teach in economics, but is crucial to understanding how a capitalist economic works, is written on the board. The government must create money because newly created money, if you look at an accounting year, is equal to business profits plus household savings. Ignore the trade, for example. Suppose there is no foreign trade. So, if there is no money created, then household savings plus business profits must equal zero, which means that if the business makes profits, then the household will actually have to lower their savings. And if the business don't make profits, then the capitalist economy doesn't work because the businesses are motivated by profits. So, money must be created in order to allow a capitalist economy to function. And basically, money drives the capitalist economy, newly created money. So the question is, who will create this money? How will they create it? And who will this newly created money go to? These are the crucial questions in understanding a monetary economy, and these questions are not discussed at all in conventional economics because conventional economics says that money doesn't matter. So, the Islamic economic system is radically different from capitalism. But getting rid of capitalism is very difficult because it's a very all-encompassing system. So, some people say that we have to make a revolution, get rid of capitalism, and then start from scratch. This is not feasible because if you get rid of capitalism, it means that nothing remains. It's like a revolution. So you destroy everything. Now you're at zero, and you have to rebuild everything from scratch. It's not an easy job. So it is possible to transition, But the transitions are not meek and timid like what we are seeing. Big steps are required. And basically, getting zero interest is the interest rate is like at the heart of the capitalist economy. So, first we must make a lot of other changes, and then we can remove the heart and move to an Islamic system. So, what is the function of banks? This is again a major myth which is commonly taught in textbooks, that the banks take the money of the depositors and lend it to the investors. This is false. Actually, banks create the money that they lend, and this money creation is done with the support of the government. Very roughly speaking, suppose that banks have deposits of 1 million, and somebody comes in and asks for $1 billion loan. So, nothing like what they have. The banks can do it easily. They will just issue him an account. And what happens if he says, okay, give me my money? So they can borrow this money from the central bank. The law says that if the bank needs to borrow money in such a situation, then the central bank is required to lend. So basically, banks can function only with the consent and support of the government, and they do this thing, which is the creation of money, which is not what the textbooks tell us. So, actually, in one of my papers, I explained how the banks captured this power and took it away from the governments, and this has been battled for centuries. There are major losses from this giving banks the power to create money. Because when the bank create money, they use it to make private profits. But this power of money creation is something that is given to them by the public. The government enables this money creation. So without the government, banks cannot function. So there is no such thing as a private sector bank because these are not private sector entities. Because what the banks do is they gamble with the public money. If they win the gamble, they pocket the case. If they lose, they go run into the government and the government bails them out. This is what happened in a grand scale in the global financial crisis, when the banks lost trillions of dollars even. And the governments just bailed them out because they said that if we don't, then the economy will collapse. So this is the key problem here, is that the gains are private, but the losses are public. So we say that if we have to bail them out, then the bank should serve the public interest, not private interest. This is the key change that is required to create an Islamic economy. So money creation must be done for public interest, not for private interest. So actually many people have noticed this and have proposed a number of different schemes. One of them is called the Chicago Plan, which says that the banks should have 100% reserve. Basically, if you have heard of the term fractional reserve banking, so suppose that banks have 20% of reserves. That means that 80% of the money they lend, they don't have. So this is the money that they have created with the support of the bank. So basically, if you say that no, you have to have 100% reserve, then you have taken away the power of money creation from the bank. So this is one of the schemes. The second scheme is to just allow them to create money, but regulate it very strongly. And this is what happened after the Great Depression. There was a very strong set of banking regulations in place which ensured that banks did not do any gambling with the public money. And so this actually created a period of prosperity for about 50 years. And then Reagan and Thatcher came along and they did financial deregulation. And so the first thing that happened was the savings and loan crisis, in which the banks lost so much money, the banks' savings and loans were heavily regulated. They started gambling, they bought Latin American stock which was paying very high, and then the Mexican economy collapsed. and they were left holding zero. And so what happened as a result was that the government had to bail them out, and this bailout was more than the entire profits of the banking sector for 50 years. So you understand the meaning of this is that banks are not private sector entities, because when they get in trouble, we pay for the bailout. They should work for our interests, not for their private interests. So the third solution, which is not available elsewhere, is that we can ask Islamic banks to live up to their name. Instead of working for private profits, they should be working to serve the mankind. This is what their purpose should be. This is what Islam teaches us, that we should work for the benefit of the society, not for private profits. And if we can do that, then we can create an Islamic economy. So what has happened in the world is that the financial sector has taken over because of this power of money creation. They can create as much money as they like. So with as much money as they like, they have brought think tanks, they purchased the Nobel Prize. Very few people know that this Nobel Prize for economics is not a genuine Nobel Prize. It is the Swedish Bank Prize in honor of Alfred Nobel. The Nobel Prize has the Nobel family has repeatedly complained that you are using our name and yours is not, it's a fake Nobel Prize. And this was created by the Chicago School, and then about half of their Nobel Prizes have all gone to the Chicago School economists, who say that private banks are great. So they can do anything. So now the thing to understand is that in an economy you have a real sector and a financial sector. The real sector, you do something like build a house or run an industry or provide some service and you make money. And then there is a financial sector which makes money on money. They do no productive activity. These are called parasites. Now, this is a picture of Pakistan economic situation where the share in the budget is being shown. So basically, what the people get is about 140 billion, and the domestic creditors' interest payment are more than half. Foreign creditors are also quite high, and what the people are getting is far below what we are paying in interest. Now, all of this is unnecessary. The government does not need to pay any interest to anybody if they follow Islamic principles. But following Islamic principles is not easy. So, the point that I wanted to make is that financial sector, the parasites have taken over the world, and basically, this was one of the key insights of the thing is that an economy functions by real productivity, and he says that basically what we need in order to have a good economy is that the investment should go for production. See, our future depends on what we invest for the future. So if our investments are going for productive activities, they are going in factories, hospitals, schools, then the society will progress. But suppose that the investments are going in stocks, in land, in foreign exchange, then obviously these are parasitical investments. So in the olden times, there was a classification. There was something which was called the rentier. The people who rent their land and make money. So they are not actually making any contribution to the society. The land that exists is a public resource. The money that is made from it comes from no productive activity on part of the person who owns the land. So what Keynes said is that similarly the same is true of capital. If I have $1 million and I lend it to somebody, I'm not doing any productive activity. The government can create this money also. So what he said is that this resource, the money, is a free resource. The government can create as much as it likes. So if the government creates money properly, then the people who are making money by lending money will be eliminated and interest will automatically go to zero. And so there will be what we call the euthanasia of the rentier. Now, the economists no longer use this term rentier. In the olden times, the production function was capital, labor, and land, T for terra. And land, capital is very different because it's manufactured, it is an artificial, somebody can own it and somebody can apply it. But the land, that is, ownership of that is just meaningless, it's not a productive activity. So later on, the economists decided to hide this fact so that the concept of the rentier disappeared, and now you don't see this word in textbooks anymore because the T has been merged with the K. So it's treated like capital, even though this is not a legitimate move because the two things are quite different. But what I just wanted to show, not discuss the technical details, but to show how economic theory is designed to deceive and to protect the interests of the rentier class and the capitalists and the financial sector. So, okay, so what do we get as an operational lesson out of this? Basically, banks should serve the public interest because they are supported by them. They cannot exist without public support. These are not private sector entities. The business they do, which is money creation, is only legitimate for governments. And the Sharia ruling on this is that nobody else can create money, but if the banks create money with the authority of the government, then they are allowed to do so. So if the government authorizes them to do so, then they can create money, but in return, the government should say that, okay, I'm giving you this authority, but you have to use it in the public interest, not for private gains. So basically, if you see, there are two types of investment. There is good investment, which will bring benefits to society, which we can call socially profitable. And then there is bad investment, which will cause harm to the society, but bring a lot of profits. And this is investment in land, in stocks, speculation. Exactly this is what led to the global financial crisis. The banks invested in ways which would bring them great profit at loss to the public. They knew that they were causing damage to society, but they allowed 1 million households in the USA went bankrupt. They lost all their lifetime savings, and the banks made billions of dollars. This was actually a financial crime by even the US law definitions, but this was never prosecuted. So if we leave the banks to do their private business, then they will do these investments which will bring them private profits at the cause harm to society. So if we say that no, you must invest in hospitals, in factories, in schools, etc., do socially profitable investments, not privately, then we can create an Islamic system and we can force them. So I explained this actually, this was a seminar I delivered at IBA last year, I think. Oh yeah, 2 years ago, in which I explained how banks can actually change the kind of financing they do. And I said that governments can force the banks because the banks will collapse without government support. So the government has the power to ensure that but the problem is that the finance sector, even in Pakistan, it controls billions and billions of rupees, and they can buy politicians and they can buy regulators. And so the battle to create an Islamic system will not be an easy one because there is a strong opposition. But there is also a strong party which is in favor of this the industrialists and the certain other sectors, the real sector of the economy, suffers a lot because of this very expensive credit. And these people are also having some power, so we can perhaps use them to push for these reforms that we want. So, how to create this change? Well, one of the things to understand about economics is that in economics, traditionally you have microeconomics and you have macroeconomics. Micro is concerned with the individual and macro is concerned with the state. But in Islam, the key level where action takes place is Meso-Economics, is the community. The rights of the neighbors are emphasized, masjid-based community, your prayers are not accepted if your neighbors are angry, and so on. So if you have a strong community, this is where all the action takes place. And there are no communities in Western economics for reasons that are a bit complicated to explain right now. I will explain it next time. So the key to development is community-driven development, and this was actually developed by our Dr. Hamid Khan, who in the Kumila project first showed the way, and his pattern was picked up. The Grameen Bank works because it lends to communities, not to individuals. So basically, what we are saying is that credit creation, the new money that is created, should be created at the level of the community, not by the government, which is Chicago plan, and not by private banks, which is the capitalist financial plan. So there is a three-part solution to the credit creation problem. You see, one of the solutions is to say that, okay, we take the power of credit creation away from banks and we should give it to the government. This is one solution. But that's not going to work. Governments are just as corrupt as the private sector. So the governments are going to waste this money also. So, but what we do is we create credit at the community level. Communities can ask for loans for socially productive projects. They can be given as a hasana. So basically, credit creation is the most powerful tool to manage the economy. The Japanese economy made tremendous growth because the central bank directed the banks to do their lending. They said, okay, the government forced the banks to say you have to lend in this sector, that sector, and that sector. They privatized the sectors. We are going to shipbuilding, you have to lend in autos, you have to lend in this, that, and the other. And basically, the government managed the investments to ensure that the banks were making productive investments. And that is how Japan had the highest growth rates in the world over the period of time when they were making rapid progress. And they reached the top rank in GNP per capita. So communities are built on foundations of families, and we have to have strong families because that's the model for the community. So without having good families, we will not be able to build communities. Now the problem is that communities have broken down in the West. Families have broken down today. More than 50% of the children born in the USA and Europe are to single mothers. They never experience what a family means. And why is that? Because Hollywood is pushing this poison of worship of the nafs. And so, the first time the husband and wife have a fight, he said, oh, I'm not enjoying this anymore, so let me go and find someone else. So the idea of lifetime commitment and the idea that this is not, the marriage is not meant for pleasure, it's meant as a commitment to society to bring up a family. Pleasure is a side benefit. This is no longer present. The main purpose of marriage is pleasure. If you're not getting pleasure, then you should just quit or look elsewhere for pleasure. So this philosophy is making its way in the Islamic land also, and we see evidence every day in my own family. I hear of divorce happening very, very often when it did not used to be like this. So the pioneer of community development was Asad Zaman, who was heading the Comilla project. My own father, Asad Zaman, was running the village aid project in parallel in this West Pakistan. He was doing East Pakistan. So my father's model, although it had its own benefits, didn't catch on in the world, but the after Habib Khan model did, and he was a pioneer. Today we don't recognize our own heroes, but a lot of very important ideas in development have come from Pakistan, like Mahbub al was one of the unsung heroes. He changed the discourse of development to human development from just pursuit of money. And there are many others who have done remarkable things like AD, like even in this hospital, which are just achievements like which are not seen on the world stage. So the point is that because of the legacy of Asad Zaman, we already have a lot of living communities in Pakistan. So taking the next step, providing them with credit is easy. So basically, we provide the communities with Al-Hasana to carry out social projects, and then we ask for repayment. If the community repays, we can then extend, increase, we evaluate their performance. If they take it and eat it, then they themselves will not be able to get further loans. And this was the key to the success of Ramin. Ramin and other social finance lending schemes achieved close to 100% returns, whereas banks achieve a very poor rate of return on their loans. So why do they do it? Because they lend to communities, not to individuals. So also we can do the same thing. So there is a three-way partnership. Banks will make the credits, they will lend to communities, they will monitor, evaluate, make sure that the money is being returned, and then they can increase the credit to the good communities, and they can decrease it to the bad communities, and thereby create a lending system at the community level. There are two specific suggestions which I have made in my new vision of banks. One is that the most productive investment is to make sure that everybody has a job. So provide skills training. There are reasons why private markets are not good at skills training. The universities are hopelessly bad at providing an education which fits well into the job market, and the industry also doesn't do this very well. So the banks can step in, give loans for training, and then the people can refund them from their skills. But more radical is the idea of a life loan. You give a loan to a child when he's born for 20 years until he becomes a productive member of the society. The loan is to cover everything that is needed to enable him to become a productive member. Now in the USA, you have 30-year mortgages. You give a loan of $1 million on a house, and the person just pays it back over a 30-year period. So this is something which is practical. Even now, in medical school, the students are given loans for 5 years, and when they graduate in the USA, they have normally about $500,000 worth of loan, but then when they become doctors, then they pay it off. So this idea that you can, as soon as the baby is born, he can get as much money as he likes as a loan until he becomes a productive member. This is perfectly feasible, and it can be worked out. So, modern market theory is the intellectual layer of Keynes. Keynesian ideas have a very strong resemblance to Islamic ideas, because Keynes first saw the economy for what it really was, and the reality is close to the truth, and Islam is not. So, one of the key contributions of the MMT is that it provides the theoretical framework for a zero-interest economy. And they have no idea of Islam. So actually I'm in dialogue with some of the leading members of the MMT School of Thought around the world, and we are working on this project to show how MMT can provide. So this is also very important, because if I say that, okay, Asad Zaman has an idea about how to create an interest-free economy, that's not very credible. But if we say that there is a whole theoretical framework which has been developed over the past century about how to create an interest-free economy, It's just that this financial framework is very much opposed to the interests of the rentier class, the wealthiest people, so they haven't allowed it to emerge, and it's a minority position. Very few people have heard about it, but it is completely and well worked out theoretical structure for how we can run an Islamic economy with zero interest and with a job guarantee. Every single person in society who wants to work should be able to get a job. This just makes sense from an economic point of view. You have an unemployed resource. If you employ it, you will increase production. Now people say, where will the money come from? And this is what the MMT answers. It says that, okay, you give the money, but the money will create output. So there will be no inflation. So actually MMT allows you to have a zero inflation economy. And a zero inflation economy is essential to have a zero interest economy. If you have a high interest rate, you cannot, if you have a high inflation rate, you cannot have zero interest on loans. It's very simple. So, the conclusion is that Islamic economy is not just a 0% interest rate economy. It is a just economic system. It provides equal opportunities for all. It provides jobs to everyone. It provides education, equal educational opportunities. These are all parts of Islam. And all of these are a package deal. Once you accomplish, create a just society, interest rate, which is the payment to the rentiers, the people who are idle, who are doing nothing, who are non-productive, who are paying their money, and today they are earning much more than people who are doing real jobs. Today the person who is working, he gets a little bit of money. The person who is sitting in the bank and lending money, he has cars and houses and everything. So this is a very unjust economic system, and in this system, the interest rate supports the power structure. And so, reducing the interest rate means you are attacking the people who are the most powerful. So this is why this is not easy. The politics of it, which I did not discuss, is the most difficult part. So let me conclude. This is the last slide, and now I'm